Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining. This is actually the most in-demand webinar that we've ever had. We almost maxed out our webinar license here at Teach Florida at 500. So we know there are going to be a lot of questions. We've gotten a lot already. It is an incredibly exciting time for the state of Florida, for Jewish education across the nation, and scholarships officially as of Monday, when Governor DeSantis signed the bill into law, are universal. Every single family will qualify. What does this mean for you? That's what we're going to get into today. We're going to share a slideshow and presentation. Try to be quick about it because we have a lot of questions, and please continue to put your questions into the chat. We're going to look at them after the presentation. So don't worry if we don't get to them now. We will get to them after. So I'm going to share my screen and we will begin. All right, so let's begin. What does House Bill 1 mean for me? So the first thing I want to do is just frame what just happened in Tallahassee. The Speaker of the House, Paul Renner, a name you all should know, decided that this was going to be his #1 bill, his #1 priority, and really pushed universal school choice to the finish line. It now means everyone should have a scholarship, but we're so grateful to Speaker Paul Renner for making this his priority. And we're going to get into what it actually means to you, and what the scholarship values are and who can apply and when can apply, with our funding specialist and our director of government programs here, Malka Rhodes. She is also available pretty much 24/6 for you. We have a website which we are currently updating with the new information at teachcoalition.org/FL-scholarship, where you can submit your questions there as well. So it's not just in this webinar, but you can submit it there as well. And we're hoping to have that website live shortly with all the new information as soon as we get it. A lot of this is very new, so we will also still have questions. We're going to do everything we can to answer your questions today. So what does this bill do? There are 4 major things that this bill does. The first, it removes the private school scholarship income restrictions, making it universal. So now every single family, I know it's sometimes hard to imagine and believe, every single family that has a child in K-12 in the state of Florida will qualify for the private school scholarship next year. The second major thing it does, it converts the scholarships from a voucher, which is traditionally just used for tuition, to an education savings account, which can be used for any qualified educational expense, usually used for tuition, but can also be for certain other things we'll get into later. The third, it increases capacity for the unique ability scholarships. So those students that have a disability can apply for that scholarship, which is a little more flexible in its use because you can use it for additional things like therapies, and also a slightly higher funding amount. And the fourth, it expands eligibility to some homeschoolers through a new program called a personalized education program. It's a little different than traditional high school programs. I don't know how many of you on here are interested in that provision, but please reach out to us. There are 20,000 slots for year 1, so it is capped, but that's another important thing that this bill does. So Malka.
So I know what you all want to know is, okay, great, this is universal scholarships, but the practicality, how do I apply? Where do I apply? So we're going to go through some of those specifics. So when can I apply? That is the most common question. We're all anticipating open enrollment. StepUp for students is usually opens late April, could be May.
And Malka, sorry to jump in, but we might have some newcomers on this call to the entire process. So just give us the 2 organizations that actually facilitate these scholarships.
So we have 2 scholarship funding organizations, StepUp and AAA Scholarships. And many of us are so familiar with StepUp, income-based scholarship, and many of us refer to the scholarships as StepUp, but there are 2 distinct organizations that process these scholarships. So StepUp for Students open enrollment is coming up soon, and it usually is around late April. It could be May because they are releasing a new portal that we'll talk about and we're very excited about. Because of those changes, it is a little slightly delayed. AAA is already open, but their processing time is usually significantly longer, and we don't have that same customer service with them and the same communication with them. So if something were to come up and we need to escalate, we wouldn't be able to help you to the same extent. So we really recommend you access scholarships through StepUp for Students. So that you are first in the know, it's very important that you click, we are going to send out the slide deck, that you click on the notifications to be notified when open enrollment begins. So you'll get the notification for the private school scholarship or unique ability scholarship, and also from Teach Florida, we'll send out notification as soon as we know that open enrollment has begun. Next slide. What do you need to apply? So since we don't have the exact date, we can at least get some of these documents together now. Now, I do want to just put out the disclaimer that some of this can change. We're still getting the newest information from StepUp, but right now, what you need to do is make sure you have your proof of residency. You do need to be a resident of Florida. We did get a couple questions around that. It is very important that you establish residency, but you do not need to have a visa. That is important to keep in mind. Private school attendance, proof of attendance. And there is a link that we can share with you where you can search up a qualifying private school, because you do need to be attending a qualifying private school to use it for tuition and fees. Proof of age is important because children must be 5 by September 1st for kindergarten and 6 for first grade. And possible income information. So do get financials together, your pay stubs if you are employed, your profit and loss statements if you're self-employed for the last 30 days. You don't necessarily need your taxes. Also, although there's no more income restrictions, we still don't know what financials may be required at the time, since the law doesn't go into effect until July 1st. If the state does not have budget enough money, priority will be given to the lower income students. What do you need to apply for the Unique Ability Scholarship? Nothing here has changed, but for new participants, proof of Florida residency as well, proof of age. This time your child can be 3 by September 1st, proof of a disability, whether it be a diagnosis from a doctor or psychologist, or evaluation documentation. Next slide. What can you use the scholarship for? So both scholarships will now be an ESA, an educational savings account, which will give it more flexibility than just a typical voucher. All the scholarships can be used for tuition and fees, educational curriculum, and academic tutoring. Unique Abilities does have distinct categories like approved specialized services like therapies, and also hardware or software related to instruction. Next slide. How do I use my scholarship? So StepUp for Students has a new portal called Emma, where families can see their account balance and apply it towards tuition and other pre-approved expenses. And they will be offering workshops on the whole new process of application and also the whole expense process. AAA has historically been a challenging process because it's been paper forms. We don't currently know their new process. Next slide. This is really big. So Emma, as we know, when we release a new portal, we have certain anxiety around it, but there's some really big wins with this release of the new portal. One of them for schools is bulk invoicing. So with the new structure of ESAs, we can do it in bulk, not individually billing. The other thing for our families and schools is that it's going to be one portal with both scholarships. So you will not need 2 logins as before. And another thing that will be a time saver for our families is there's a one-time parent approval, just once at the beginning of the year, and it will not need to be that quarterly approval. Big wins for our families and schools.
All right, thanks so much, Malka. And we know we're running through this. I think the questions will be very, very informative in terms of answering some of the questions that you guys have, and we're going to go through those at the end. So let's just quickly go through how much will I receive? And one of the biggest questions you got to address now is you cannot receive the StepUp income-based scholarship, or what was the Gardner, the Family Empowerment Unique Ability Scholarship, and this, because they are the same scholarship. So you're going to end up choosing the one that has the highest value. And that depends on what grade level and county of residence your child lives in, because it follows the same amount that follows the public school. The idea is that the money follows the child. And I'm going to share the next slide, which has some basic South Florida information. I'm happy to share anyone from a different county offline what those were. We are fighting and hoping that the scholarship values will increase slightly for next year. And so as soon as we figure that out from Tallahassee toward the end of session and the Department of Education's calculations, we will let you know. So here's the chart from last year. As you'll see, the highest level is K through 3, and then high school and middle school tend to be pretty similar. Because of different cost factors of hiring teachers, you'll see that Broward is a little lower, but generally it's around 8,000 on average statewide. Some of our counties are lower, some are higher. The Family Empowerment Scholarship for Unique Abilities, formerly Gardner, is significantly higher. And we are very hopeful to see a couple $100 increase this next year for this scholarship. So I think it's the exciting time. We can get to our questions. Please note that you can contact us anytime by email at Malka or at our website at teachcoalition.org/FL scholarship. So I'm going to turn to the questions. And Malka, let's get started. So one question is, what if I already have a state scholarship?
So you're only eligible to receive one, and you can choose. You can apply for both, though, but you can only receive one when you are awarded. And this new scholarship is not in addition to, if you're already receiving StepUp, that is the scholarship. This is now, instead of income-based, it is now a private school scholarship. So it is the same, it's one and the same.
Great. Now, do I have to go to a scholarship eligible school?
To use it for the private school scholarship, yes, you do need to go to a qualifying private school, and we can share with you that link in the chat. If for the unique abilities, you cannot use it for tuition and fees unless you're going to an eligible school, but you can use it for the other uses. So like therapies and education materials.
Great. Now, something that's been coming up a lot lately, can the private school scholarship be used for transportation?
So it cannot be used for transportation. It is only, that is a stipulation only for public school students who are attending a school that is not in their zoned area. So I know there was some confusion in the email sent out, but that was just to tell you that now FESEO and FTC, both of those can be used for transportation for public school students. That was the change.
Great. So how do I decide whether I'm going to apply for the Unique Ability Scholarship or the Universal Scholarship?
So if your child has an identified disability, or you're concerned that they have a disability and is receiving services, I recommend applying for the Unique Ability Scholarship. Otherwise, I recommend going for the private school scholarship now that it's universal.
Thanks. Now, what if a parent's divorced? Who can apply?
Either parent can apply, and it doesn't matter whether you have full or joint custody. It just any parent can apply.
And we have supported families in that situation because the finances can get very complicated. So if that's your situation, definitely reach out to us and we can help assist you through that. What about the current wait list for the Family Empowerment Unique Ability Scholarship, which is about 10,000 students? And how will the renewal process work?
That's one of the other exciting parts of the bill that we don't see highlighted as much, is that it expanded the amount of slots to include all waitlist families to be funded for this year, and also to add on new slots. So the process for this year for renewal families will be an intent to continue process. And for the waitlist families, they're still clarifying what that process will look like. We don't expect that they'll require the diagnosis documentation, though.
Great. So how can a school help their parents get through this process?
First, by attending all Emma workshops, so that you are appraised of all the changes to the system on your end, on the school's end, and also to see what the portal might look like for families. Reach out to, look at our webpage for information, reach out to StepUp on their chat is always a good way to get some really quick information. And, you know,
and for parents on this call, it's important to be proactive. Know that you have resources at StepUp for Students Customer Service, here at Teach Florida, and at your school to help you through this process. And of course, you can help your friends. I think that's one of the biggest ways the scholarship has grown, is by friends telling friends and helping friends how to do it. Will any funds be available, Malka, for this current 22-23 school year?
It is uncertain, but we don't expect that. So if there are additional funds, some families have been prorated later in the year, you will be notified directly from StepUp. But I'm telling families to really let's put our vision towards next year. We don't expect too much funding to come up this late in the year.
Yeah, I think it's very, very unlikely. And this bill, it just focuses on the future. If a school doesn't participate, what can that school do to try and become a participant school?
So there is a state compliance process. Usually takes about 3 to 6 months. And you can definitely reach out to us or directly to the Department of Education if you're a new school who's looking to become compliant.
Yeah, and something very important about that, because it's not an easy process. You have to get through some city zoning codes too. You can, as long as you apply by October 1st, you do have some time by December 1st to actually correct some of the issues in your application. So I would definitely apply any new schools, talk to any new schools and tell you there's still time to try to do it, but it's a hard process. We're also here to assist you. What about if you're a parent and you're attending a school that doesn't participate in the scholarship?
So for the private school scholarship, then you wouldn't be able to access it, but for the unique abilities, you just wouldn't be able to use it for tuition and fees. So
yeah, and I think so. it's really important if you're at a school that doesn't participate to talk to your school and see if they're thinking about participating and becoming eligible. I do know a handful of schools that are already in the process trying to become eligible. I'll take 2 minutes for this question. Will there be enough money from the state to fund this program? And this actually is when this Tallahassee is looking at the budget, they're assuming not so many schools are going to participate for next year, maybe for the following years. They're budgeting a lot of money for this program. The Senate and House are pretty far apart right now, but we're advocating for as much money as possible to be budgeted for this program, and are very hopeful because the legislature is committed to making sure that there is no waitlist for this program. So while we can't say anything for sure, we're doing everything we can and trying to make sure there is no waitlist. If for some reason there is not enough funding, there is a priority given to lower income families. And so that's why so the scholarship organizations like StepUp for Students and AAA might request income information to know if they should prioritize your application first, or they might decide not to and just prioritize anyone that did decide to put it in that would qualify under those.
And a lot of people are concerned. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, timing is really critical. I can't emphasize this enough. If there is not enough funding, it'll be first come, first serve for those outside of the income-based priority. So it's really important that when the scholarships open, people are ready to apply. And that's why we're going to send out the slideshow and this recording to all of you who registered today, and get your documents together and come prepared so that when it opens, whether that's late April, earliest, whether that's mid-May, whether that's potentially even July if they wait till the law's in effect, although we're hoping it'll be sooner, you're ready to apply and you're on our list and you're on StepUp's notification list to be able to apply.
And I just want to say we did get a couple questions around tax returns. And again, it's not the required first documents. If you give clean documents in the last 30 days to have that prepared, you don't necessarily have to worry about your taxes.
Yeah. What if you're on the unique ability waitlist for this year and you also have siblings? What would you recommend to those families?
I would recommend applying to both because it's a first come, first serve now on both sides. I would still, again, we are expecting that you'd be funded, but there is a certain time frame where you have to wait to get approved before you can apply for a sibling. So I would do both. Apply as a private school student.
And we're going to try to run through, we have about 100 questions. So we're going to run through as fast as possible. We're almost at the questions in the chat today. People that submit it online get first priority. So can a resident apply, or do you need to be a U.S. citizen?
Resident, not a U.S. citizen.
Great. What if I switch from one private school to another?
We are still waiting on that process to be clarified because we said the approval happens right at the beginning. So we will send out that information as soon as we have that.
Right. So currently this year, it was whatever school you attended for the first 10 days of each quarter. But it's a little trickier now that you can commit the money to one school at the beginning of the year, which is something we're trying to figure out. And that's something we want to emphasize for schools also, and for parents. If you have a tuition contract with a school and you have that money in your account and you agree at the beginning of the year that your contract is going to be X amount, you will basically be committing that money that's in your account to be used for tuition. And that way the school knows what to expect, you know what to expect. And so that's a really important conversation to have with your school at the beginning of the year, because a lot of times, especially in South Florida, the funding amounts are less than tuition, just because the funding amounts, if they're at $8,000, are going to be less than tuition. Do you need to provide taxes in order to get a scholarship? Oh,
okay. I already saw that one coming. So no, you do not. Again, have your other financials on hand. If that's your only documentation, then obviously, some people will only have that for whatever reason.
Okay, and we're just sorting through some questions that we already answered already. This is the question I'll take on right now because a lot of people have been asking this, but will schools feel that this gives them the ability to raise tuition? Major question, and actually for those of you that are curious, it came up in Tallahassee in the discussions in committee, where they just said, well, what's going to happen to the marketplace? So I can tell you a couple of things that we've done in our research. We've looked back the last 10 years at Jewish day school tuition in Florida as the scholarship program has grown significantly. As of this year, about 55% of students are on scholarship, and our scholarship in the state of Florida has increased by an average of 28%. The national average is about 53%. So we have seen certainly lower increases and also increases in teacher pay and quality. And so those conversations of tuition are really going to have to had at the school level, because a lot of schools, especially in this environment, have significant needs that we might not know or you might not know, and having those conversations is critical. So the question of what schools do, we really don't know. There is certainly an element of a marketplace here, where if there's more money available, will more schools open? We've seeing more schools open, and will there be more competition in the marketplace? We believe so over time, but there are also demands that schools have, especially with a teacher shortage and with property insurance and utilities going up, that they also have to budget those things out. So it's a really complicated topic, something we think about a lot here at Teach Florida. Our main focus obviously is on getting the funding from the state. And now we've really achieved a great deal of parity and equity, and that every single child, whether you go to public, whether you go to homeschool or private, will be able to get that money to follow the child. We said, is there a cap on the number of students that can receive scholarships? Again, it's going to be dependent on what happens with the budget in Tallahassee right now. So yesterday, the Appropriations Committee heard the budget in both chambers, the House and Senate. They're going to go into negotiations behind closed doors, and we're advocating to make sure they allocate as much money as possible. They're both actually putting reserves in the budget to make sure they can fund all the kids in this programs. They really want to, and it's going to be based on how many kids they estimate are going to be involved in the program. So Malka, can you cover quickly, please, the transportation scholarship for public school?
So the transportation scholarship for public schools, if you are a public school parent who like their child to attend a public school that is not in your zoned area, you can apply for an FTC under the private school scholarship now, or FACO, and you can use $750 towards transportation. You can be reimbursed for transportation.
Yeah, and that's to go to a different public school. It will not affect those of you that are going to go to a private school. Okay, a question here that is, this is the last one we have on the sheet, then we'll turn to the questions from today. What happens if a Democratic governor comes into power in the future? And I would say, obviously, we can't predict what will happen. What I can tell you, though, is those that are on the scholarship have, in surveys, said they really like the scholarship, and across the state and the country, people are having surveys that they like school choice. So I think it'll be very, very challenging for someone to make major changes in the program that would affect, currently 250,000 students on scholarship, and next year could be as much as 350, 400,000 students on scholarship in Florida. Any impact to those students would obviously have a massive result. So it's something that obviously, we think about in terms of policy, because there are different ideas in terms of policy of what things private schools should or shouldn't have to do. But for right now, again, and because it's such a big program, it's hard to make such major changes. Okay, a couple of questions. Now we're going to move to the chat. So I'm going to take some of these, Malka, and just run through them. Can you also get StepUp scholarships? What if you also have Gardner? So this is essentially an expansion. You cannot get both. This is an expansion of those programs. What the StepUp and Gardner are, that's the way that you get the money you would have gotten if you went to public school. So what this does is anyone that was not eligible for that is now eligible for that. So you're still applying through StepUp for students, and you get the Family Empowerment Scholarship, which was called Gardner. Whether it's the educational opportunities or the unique abilities depending on disability, you can only get one of these two scholarships. A little bit of questions about the process, how to apply. We're going to share, we covered that a little bit, and we'll share it, and we'll also put it on our website. But when they do open, you'll get a notification if you sign up with us and StepUp about how to apply and what documentation you'll need. If the scholarship is not based on income, how are the recipients chosen? Well, we're hoping there'll be enough money to fund the entire program. That's the short answer. And they are committed. I spoke to them this morning, actually, committed to funding every single child. If not, then it will be prioritized by income levels, income tiers. So I see a couple questions more about siblings as I'm scrolling through this. Again, if you're already on the state scholarship, you cannot get another state scholarship. It is effectively the same scholarship. You're going to want to choose whatever is going to give you the highest amount, which is if you have a disability, the unique ability scholarship. If not, it's going to be the educational options. So is there concern that expanded growth of this program will have backlash to the program? I really don't think so. I think as the program's grown, we've actually seen just excitement. I think everyone in Florida is either on the program or directly knows someone that's on the program, and that's going to change even next year. So the only additional things in terms of backlash we could see in the future is potentially more requirements of private schools, and those will have to be done very intelligently because obviously we want to maintain the freedom and liberty that private schools have. What ages qualify? For the universal scholarship that was income-based, it's kindergarten through 12th grade, as long as you're 5 by September 1st. That's Florida's public school timeline. For the disability scholarship, it's ages 3 by September 1st through 22 or when you graduate high school. When is the best time to apply? It is as soon as applications open. So again, that's why we want to be signed up for our notifications and for StepUp's notifications to apply as soon as it opens. So can you apply for financial assistance for a specific school in addition to the state-sponsored scholarship? The answer is yes, of course. In fact, many schools will actually require you to apply for the state scholarship before applying for financial aid.
And for children who are transferring from public school, there is some also local dollars through URA and through Nechama Israel. And also sometimes if in certain counties, Federation or Jewish Family Services can also do additional assistance for tuition.
Yeah, so Malka, let me ask you a couple of these. What if I already applied for the Unique Ability Program and I'm waitlisted? What am I going to be doing?
So again, if you want to cover all your bases, you can also apply for the universal. And like I said, the bill does say that it opened up enough slots, it increased enough that it will cover you. But again, if you're the kind of person who needs that comfort, apply for both.
Yeah, this is a question I'll take, because the question is, what about school buses? As transportation costs have skyrocketed, it's something we thought about a lot. People asked us when this bill passed and was signed, so are you guys retiring? Are everyone's getting a scholarship now? That was really our mission when we set out 7 years ago to really build Teach Florida. The answer is, of course not, because our mission ultimately is to make Jewish education affordable and accessible for every Jewish child. And one of the biggest challenges we have are buildings, buses, and services for kids that have additional needs. And so school buses is something that we've been strongly looking at. From a policy area, it's a little complicated because of the way the public schools are funded for it. The actual money for the capital buses might be easier, but the real cost of the bus drivers, which is the biggest cost, is challenging. So for right now, just know it's on our radar. Those couple of things of the capital cost as properties values rise in South Florida, and the buses and services of kids with special needs. If you're not familiar with what we're doing on that, please reach out to us. We are hand-holding people through the evaluation process with the district and fighting every district to make sure that every child gets every service they are entitled to. It's a big priority of ours for this upcoming year. And one more thing, note, if you have a child with severe disabilities at a matrix level 254 or 5 from the school district, or think you might be able to qualify for that, we're also helping families navigate that. You can get double or triple the amount of funding. So up to $20,000, close to $30,000 in a scholarship if your child has a severe disability. I'm just going through this and I see a bunch of questions. Should I give up the StepUp for Student Scholarship for this scholarship?
It's one and the same.
Right. Again, so it's going to be just to grab StepUp for Students is the organization that's administering the scholarship, and it's just taking the scholarship and expanding it for everyone else. We are parents who live out of state, but our child is dorming in high school in Florida. Are we eligible?
No, you have to be a resident of Florida. The parents have to be a resident.
Will the Family Empowerment Unique Ability increase their amounts since tuitions might increase? I'll take that because I'm checking the budgets in Tallahassee. I do believe there will be an increase this year. Whether it's $200, $400, it's really hard to know. Potentially for Unique Ability could be even a little more than that, but it won't be a significant increase like a couple thousand because it's tied to what the public school students are receiving as well. Let's just cover the application criteria one more time, Malka. People can look back on this, but I think it's a question I'm seeing a lot. So what's the application criteria for a private school scholarship for anyone that's thinking, okay, when it opens, I'm going to get my application together?
Okay. Your private school has to be an eligible private school. That's number one. So the compliance piece is really critical to this. If you're the school, if you're a parent, you have to ask us. I just spoke to a parent this morning. I said, ask your school, shoot them an email. Are you compliant with the state to accept scholarships? That's number one. Then are you a resident of Florida? That's critical as well. And your child has to be 5 at school age. So 5 by September 1st, as Danny said, entering kindergarten, or 6 in first grade. And then that's it. Again, this year, there may be some income requirements, and especially as Danny mentioned, if we're going to give priority to lower income, you might want to have your financials there. So for you right now, find out if your school's eligible and get those documents, your residency documents like lease, mortgage, utility bill, and get your financials together last 30 days. That's what you need to be ready. For Unique Abilities as well, you need to be a resident of Florida, 3 by September 1st. Your school has to be an eligible school if you want to use the money towards tuition and fees, but you can use it for the other uses if not. And of course, most importantly, that your child has a diagnosed disability.
Great. So is it enough that students are resident? We said no, the parents have to be residents of Florida. And Can non-US citizens qualify? We said, yes, you have to be a resident here. What if you're moving from out of state? How long do you have to be a Florida resident?
24 hours. Just as long as you have the document to show that you have your Florida driver's license, release, mortgage, utility bill.
And we recommend having everything in place so that the second you get your, driver's license, utility bill, or documentation, you can apply right away.
My best advice is when you get the notification, get on your computer and stay there until it's done.
What if my son's starting kindergarten in the 24-25 school year? So not next year, but the following year. Can I apply now, or do I need to wait a year?
You have to wait until the year your child's turning 5 is September 1st. So you wait one more year.
Great. Will there be universal talking points letter we can send out to families? So I'll take this just in terms of whether it's universal, like how to apply and all these technical issues and technical details. We're going to send out this webinar, and we're going to be updating, and the slideshow we did, and we'll be updating our scholarship website. If you're talking about the policy of why universal is a good thing, I wrote an op-ed in the Orlando Sentinel recently and how we can have strong public schools and school choice and how they can work hand in hand. It's not something we're planning on sharing far. I mean, it's out there, but if you need additional talking points, we have endless amounts of talking points about how this is really good policy. And I'll even say in this budget, they're proposing to increase public school K-12 spending close to $2 billion. And so it's not a zero-sum game. It's not that they're only helping scholarship students, but they're going to spend a record level of funding on public schools as well. And of course, there are always going to be more needs in public schools because there always are, and our private schools also have more needs, but it's not one or the other. How much should a family expect to receive per child? And how is the award affected if you have multiple children in that school?
So the scholarship amount is per child. So again, it's by grade and county. So it just depends if you have a kindergartner, if you have a third, fourth grader, it might be a slightly different amount, but it is per child scholarship.
Okay, how would it apply for toddlers?
Well, if you consider a toddler 3 by September 1st, then it would be a toddler.
Yeah, if they have unique
for
ability,
the unique ability scholarship,
right, for the unique ability scholarship, it could be relevant. Otherwise, it's only 5 by September 1st for kindergarten. Can it be used for college?
So there is a 529 account where you could put money towards college with the unique ability scholarship. So technically, yes.
Yeah, and what this bill does also, because the money does roll over in your account year to year, but it caps the amount that could be in your account because it's not intended for someone just to collect the money. So it limits that to make sure that parents are spending the money on their child's education. Can the money be used for things like registration fees, books, lunch, ?
That's a good question. That really depends on how the school sets it up in the system in terms of tuition and fees. So if it's under their tuition and fees, they submit to StepUp, potentially, yes.
Yeah, so books for sure you could use yourself because that's part of the other allowed expenses. But if this, whatever the school is counting towards tuition and fees, you can get reimbursed for or use that money for that. Is there one pot of money for different scholarships or funds divided for the different scholarship paths?
So if you notice when we say FTC and FESEO, FTC, the money for the private school scholarship, a big chunk of it is coming from the tax credits. And then the rest of it is in the state budget. That's what FES, Family Empowerment Scholarship, represents, so that it's money that was put into the state budget. And Unique Abilities is just state funding because as you know,
and StepUp for Students is going to be using that tax credit money first. That's part of the new law. And then the money will be coming from the state FEFP general education budget. Is the new scholarship only for first grade or any child 1st through 12th?
So don't forget about your kindergartners, but you do have to be the right age to qualify. 5 by September 1st for kindergarten.
Yes. You will have access to this recording. That is a question. Do they anticipate seeing a funding increase for 22-24? Yes, and we're fighting for it. And as soon as we know, believe me, we will let you know. Do we expect almost all private schools to accept this scholarship? What about some of those schools that are considered more prep schools? And if not, can we just use the money for tutoring?
So no, you would. It is only schools that are qualified private schools. And I will say my phone is ringing off the hook for people who are saying, I would like to become a compliant school because this is a big chunk of funding for our schools and for our families. And so I expect we will see an increase of new schools becoming compliant. But we cannot
Yes.
say that there won't be schools out there that will still choose not to become compliant through the state.
And if you're curious whether your school is compliant, the first thing you should do is go to their website, because most schools do list it on their website under the finance information. And otherwise, you can go to the Florida Private School Directory and search there as well. We're going to get those links and send them out with a follow-up email for you. And if you're a private school watching that's not compliant, please let us know. We've helped other private schools through the process. It's very complicated just because of issues, zoning issues at the local level, usually with cities. But we're happy to do anything we can to help you. You do not, it says, do I need to reapply if I want the scholarship versus the sibling scholarship?
So again, the sibling scholarship, I would say go about it both ways. I would apply for a private school scholarship, provide the financials if needed, and also once awarded, you can reapply as a sibling. And again, if you already were awarded, you're just a renewal. You're just going to say, I want to continue on the private school scholarship side. You wouldn't need to redo anything.
Yeah. Do you need to show proof of residency and private school attendance?
Yes, there is going to, we're not yet sure what the private school attendance document will be, but yes, because it has to be a qualifying private school, you would need to.
What is Emma that you mentioned in regards to the bulk invoicing?
So that is the new portal. It has a little owl picture that you'll see. You'll get a lot of emails about it. The acronym escapes me right now. It's some kind of management system, the enrollment management system, I believe. No, something for A. Either way, but that's the portal that will be used both on the school side and on the parent side. And you will be receiving notifications to be trained on how to use the system. So look out for those. That's really critical.
Yeah, it's meant to make things much easier. What makes a school eligible for a scholarship? And then I'm going to just start skipping through some of the questions that are more similar so we can get to some later on ones. But Malka, why don't you address that?
Again, it's based on the state compliance process. So if they've gone through the state compliance, then they can accept either one of those scholarships for tuition and fees.
What if your child lives in Dade County but attends a private school in Broward County?
So that's a very good question. So it goes by where you live in terms of the scholarship amount. So if you're looking at the chart, make sure you're paying attention to where you live, not where the school is.
Where can you find the forms for StepUp as well as this scholarship?
There's no forms, any specific forms right now. Again, if there is some sort of requirement for private school attendance, there will be some sort of form that StepUp will put probably in their initial email for open enrollment.
Yeah, so one question here is, if your child's waitlisted at a school, do we foresee schools opening more spots? I think it's really school specific, but we hope so. Whether it's that specific school, whether it's new schools starting, we've seen incredible growth in Jewish day school enrollment in Florida, nearly doubling over the last 7 years, which is contrary to trends in certain other states. So it's a combination of the scholarship programs enabling schools to be better quality, new schools to open, and people moving here that I think of. So I do think that our educational market is going to continue to grow, especially as now every school knows that every child can come in with a certain amount of money. So I see one question I want to clarify, because we've been talking about 8,000, 8,000, 8,000, and some people are only getting, say, like 6,900 this year in Broward County. The 8,000 is the statewide average for every county. Broward really gets the short end of the stick. For any policy wonks, I'm happy to explain to you how the district cost differential calculation works in terms of the Florida price level index and why Broward really does get the short end of the stick when it comes to these things. So unfortunately, that scholarship is going to be the same as whatever other income-based scholarship or sibling-based scholarship you already have. It's really just one pool. Where can you get notifications? We're going to send all of that out to you. Is AA and StepUp the same scholarship, or are they two different scholarships?
So they process the same scholarship, but they might have different requirements. So Unique Abilities, for example, in AAA, they have a diagnosis form instead of a diagnosis letter. So again, and they ask for taxes in terms of financials, again, but they process the exact same scholarship. So it's one or the other. Yeah,
and I will highlight that StepUp's ML platform is really incredible and going to make things easier. And we've had great relationship working with them. So we do generally recommend, unless there's another reason, applying to StepUp, but I understand every family wants to make their own decision for sure.
And if there's any issues that come up, we can escalate it for you. And I feel very confident in that. Whereas I don't have that same relationship. We don't have that same relationship with AAA. So I really highly recommend StepUp in that case.
Yeah, let's try to run through. We have so many more questions, but my son is in public school and applying to private now. So we don't have proof of attendance yet. What can we do?
So again, I don't know that it's going to be something very complicated that you'll need for proof of attendance. It might just be the school doing a printout that they've been accepted. But there will be a release of guidance soon as to what you'll need. And just remember, for private school students on the Unique Ability Scholarship, you will not be waitlisted if they have a disability. Keep that in mind. Okay,
question important. When will we know if there's enough funding for that, for everyone, as opposed to just the lower income families that get priority? I think we will know earlier on, because the Department of Education is supposed to start funding scholarships at the beginning of August, as opposed to the beginning of September in past years. At least that's my understanding from the law, in which case the scholarship organizations are going to have to send over those applications and those students even earlier. So I do believe that every family, regardless of income, should apply earlier, because I think we're going to go straight into that third category of everyone receiving the scholarship. If my child goes to a private school already, can we apply for a scholarship for next year?
Yes, when open enrollment begins.
Yeah, I mean, this is potentially a question from someone who was here in 2012, before they changed the law to remove the prior public school requirement. You used to have to be a public school student before switching to get a scholarship. And thank God that is no longer the case, because it was a very limiting restriction for most private school students. What about the UA wait list? I think we spoke about that. It's still intact. You'll still be able to apply, and you'll still be able to get that higher amount if you're on that unique ability wait list. What does proof of private school attendance look like? Is it something the school provides?
Yes, in the past, it was just the school giving a proof of attendance, like that you've been accepted. But again, StepUp hasn't released any guidance yet, and we will put out that information. And generally, that's not something that will delay an application. They'll just need that to understand, when schools want to enroll you, or that process. So I don't think you should worry too much about that piece.
Are the scholarship funding amounts guaranteed?
Do you want to take that, Danny?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure if that's referring to whether you will get a scholarship or the amounts that I showed on the screen. Again, we think everyone will get a scholarship, but it depends on how much they budget for it. In terms of the amounts that we showed on the screen, those are for sure guaranteed. The money is not going to go down next year. If anything, it should go up in terms of the amount per scholarship. How do I decide whether to apply to StepUp or AAA?
Again, it's totally a personal decision. But again, the amount of time that it takes for processing and the lack of communication, again, I really highly recommend StepUp again.
Okay, and I apologize as I take a minute. I'm just scrolling through the very similar questions. There will be no one will come off the wait list retroactively for the current year based on this bill. This bill exclusively looks at funding for next year. Parents who approve for a scholarship, do they need to go to Emma to pay the school, or can the school pull the funds from your Emma if you approve access?
So if it's similar to the way it was this year, then we expect there's a way they can invoice you and you approve the payment. So you'll see it on the portal, you see your balance, but then you approve payment to.
Okay, do renewal families have to submit income documentation?
No.
Can you do a demonstration on how to apply through StepUp?
I am going to offer scholarship nights for our schools, and I will be doing a similar type webinar. I'll be showing you the process, and you can ask questions as you're going through the process, because again, it's going to be new for everyone. So we are going to be.
Yeah, we will also put that video on our scholarship website. But again, it's going to be a new portal next year. But as soon as that's open to us, and StepUp for students will also be offering webinars on how to apply. Do we know how many private school scholarships will be provided? That's kind of being debated in Tallahassee right now. It's anywhere from 80,000 approximately, potentially 80,000 if you include the homeschoolers, potentially 60,000 new private schools. They're debating now upping that a little bit. So it really depends on how they're looking at a lot of complicated data in terms of enrollment in the past and the present, and then trying to figure out the future. Do you need to apply every year, or once you're accepted, is it automatic for subsequent years?
Great question. You do need to reapply every year, but it's a simple process of just wanting to continue in the program. But yes, please always look out for notification about open enrollment.
Okay, do parents need to rush to apply at the end of April or mid-May, whenever the scholarships open?
Yes, get those documents together.
Do online schools qualify?
No, there are specific programs that FESUA has in their handbook, and you could reach out to FESUA at sufs.org in case, and we'll put that in the chat as well, or in follow-up email.
Yeah, you can use, if you have the ESA and not using it all for tuition and fees, you can use it for approved virtual providers. So, or if you're in the homeschool, approved virtual providers. Will existing families that currently get scholarship be prioritized over new families?
Yes, because yes, renewal families will be prioritized.
Will this affect pre-K or VPK?
Yes, that's a great question. You cannot accept VPK and the scholarship, but because you can apply for VPK later on in the year, my suggestion is to apply for the scholarship. And then if you, for whatever reason, you don't get funded, then you can apply for VPK, but it's double dipping to accept both.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm reading through questions. See if there's anything new. I'll answer this question, which is a policy question, but why should the state give over $100 million to private schools without any income restrictions? I would say that just like VPK or Bright Futures for college, we believe in funding every single child while also providing a strong public system. Actually, one of the things that Miami-Dade's having their budget workshop day, the public schools, and because property values are up so much, they're getting hundreds of millions more than expected just for the public schools next year because of those property values. So again, not that they don't have challenges, but I do believe we can both fund children and support the public system. And again, anyone who is in the public system that is a millionaire or billionaire is also being funded. It's just this idea of funding every child so we can customize education more and attend the school that you want to attend. I see a lot of other questions that we seem to have already were asked and answered. Please be patient as I continue. I hear a school question. As a school, we deduct StepUp award from the tuition. Do we have to wait to bill our student body until we know their awards? In other words, we can't assume from the start of the year that every family who applies will receive the award.
Correct. So for your renewal families, go ahead, Jan.
There are two ways a family can use the scholarship, because you can use it either if you're using the platform to pay tuition from the money in your account, or if you pay out of pocket and you get a paid invoice from the school for the amount in your account, you can get reimbursed that way as well. So it's not just because you're a parent who pays tuition, you can't get reimbursed for that later on. It can work one way or the other. But we are hoping to find out about awards before the school year, although I know some schools do start invoicing as early as July.
We've actually advised schools to maybe wait on invoicing and wait till September 1st, just so you have more clarity.
I'm seeing a lot of similar questions. I apologize. I just want to make sure we do get, how about this? Does McKay Scholarship still exist, and does it factor into this?
So if you were funded on McKay at a higher amount, then you will continue to be grandfathered in until your child graduates on that higher amount. So it does factor and it does make a difference. So it really just depends on what level they were funded before. But now it is all under the umbrella of unique abilities. Same thing with Gardner.
Okay, and I am putting some links in the chat now that I had a minute, just in terms of being able to find a private school or signing up for the interest list or signing up for Teach Florida's mailing list. So those links are also in the chat if you want to get ahead of our follow-up email. One thing I'll say about the McKay Scholarship transition is that there is potential that those at the highest funding levels, the level 4 and level 5 student with the most severe needs, could see a significant increase next year. If you're in that boat and want to reach out to us to learn more information, please reach out to us. Do you need to apply for every child?
Yes, but for the unique abilities, only the child with the eligible disability.
If a family received a scholarship and currently attends a private school, can the parent choose not to use it for tuition and to use it for other purposes like tutoring, college saving, standardized testing, etc.?
For unique abilities, yes, but for the private school scholarship,
well, even for the private school scholarship, if you decide you want to pay tuition out of pocket separately, and then you want to use that for, private tutoring, you can't use it for college savings, but private tutoring, standardized testing, other things, you could do that. I think the vast majority of people do use it for tuition, but you could use it flexibly. Malka, talk briefly about the homeschool question, just the difference in homeschooling and this personalized education program.
So in the past, with the Unique Ability Scholarship, a homeschool parent can get the advantages. Now, under the private school scholarship, if you're what's considered PEP, you're part of a personalized education program, which last year was just that you had to have a portfolio. That's what made you a homeschool parent and you registered under the district. Now you'd also have to provide standardized scoring, and you'd also have to come up with an education plan that you submit to the SFO, is what we call StepUp, the scholarship funding organization. But I definitely reach out to me separately if you have homeschool related questions. There's also some contact that I can get you in touch with. But there are only, like Annie said, only 20,000 slots for that program.
So two additional questions. It's still not clear for someone whether it's per student or per family, and is it based on your school where your school is located or where you live, the scholarship amount?
It's based on where you live, the county on where you live, and it is per student, not per family.
Yeah, do you have to disclose any of this information to state universities when applying?
No, I always tell people that are worried, especially on the Unique Ability Scholarship side, that is not reported to anyone, and you only supply the disability category once, aside for the high-risk disability. But no, it is not reported.
All right, what if a grandparent is a resident?
So unless they're adopted, let me think. If they're living with the family, I believe there's a way that you can apply. I need to think about this. I may have to come back to that one. But
yeah, reach out to us separately for sure.
Yes.
We touched upon virtual schools. We touched upon a lot of these questions. Yes, we can help any private school that wants to try to open. Please reach out to us and we'll send you some basic information and see where you are. Is there a list of what is considered a diagnosed disability?
Yes. And just going back to the question on grandparent, the grandparent would have to have custody of the child that the child is living with for the child to take up that residency. And yes, there's a list of the diagnosed disabilities. StepUp has one, and we also have one on our website, and feel free to reach out with any questions.
Okay, if my son skipped year and is going to first grade early, is he not eligible since he'll need to be 6 by September 1?
See, there's no way around that. Basically, you have to wait till 2nd grade because that's where it starts not having that specific age requirement.
All right, and apologize if I'm not answering your question. You will be able to watch the recording back if you missed something, or can email us separately. So U.S. World and News reports as the cost per public school student in Broward is $10,142. If that's true, why are StepUp amounts in Broward so much lower? So the answer to your question is that funding for education is a combination of state and local funding. So we are now getting 100% of the state funding. However, there is a lot more of local funding. So if you live in any of the South Florida counties, you voted this election on whether to increase a 1 millage tax, essentially, to pay for additional salary for public school teachers and public school safety. That is money that will generate a couple $1 billion in South Florida for public schools that is currently not calculated into the scholarship amount. And there's also money for capital costs for buildings that are part of our property taxes that are not. And so those are things we look at long-term. Ultimately, we want to maintain equity. You know, public schools do have certain restrictions that private schools don't have, and they do have to take every single child as opposed to being more restrictive. So there is definitely a balance to be had between these. But we have expressed to the legislature the real challenges, especially of land and buildings and capital costs here in South Florida. Is there any college assistance?
So if you have money in the prepaid college account, you can use it. So that's where it would come into. It would be related to the Unique Ability Scholarship for children with disabilities.
Yeah. If your child is in public school, they cannot get this scholarship. If they switch from public to private, they can. But if they're in public school, then the public school is getting the scholarship.
And only transportation then would be available to you if you're not.
Right. If you want to go to a different public school, you can get $750 for transportation. If your son is 5 by September 3rd, I'm sorry, but it's a very hard and fast public school related rule. Second grade is when it begins not to matter. Second grade, they don't have that restriction anymore. So we only have a few more minutes left. I'm sorry if we didn't get to your questions. Please, if you have a question that we didn't answer, please email Malka. I'll put her an email in the chat, or put it in our on our website, which I'll also put in the chat right now. And Malka, can you close it up here?
I just want to thank everybody for attending. This is really an exciting time to be in Florida. This is really a historic win for all of us, for our communities. And, you know, please feel free to reach out. We're here to support you in this process. You don't want you going through anxiety. You know, this is all new, but there's really big potential for growth in our communities, for new schools to open up. And, you know, thanks to Teach Florida and the advocacy work that we've done, that we've gotten to this day. And thank you all for being partners in this work.
And I'll say, because I see just one more questions. Again, you're going to apply the same way you have through StepUp for students in the past. If you're on scholarship, I've seen that question a lot. So don't get confused. It's for that same scholarship. And the rest of us, we are here all the time. So thank you so much for joining, being a part of this momentous occasion, and reach out. Thank you. To begin